Hello, I'm John McAllister, and today I'd like to welcome you to the John McAllister Report. No football, no men coaches, but we're talking to a volleyball coach from Ashland University. She happens to be a friend of mine. Coach Katie Kuhn is starting her second year at Ashland University as women's volleyball coach. Solid year last year. Did a heck of a job recruiting. Has got a really good young volleyball players coming in for the fall. Just the program is going in the right direction. But today, I wanted to concentrate on Katie Kuhn, the volleyball coach, as far as her thinking on how she recruits, how she builds a team, what she looks for in recruits, and maybe some of the things that have helped her over the years mature as a volleyball coach and as a person. She's very student oriented. She loves working with the kids and tries to maintain a close relationship, and which is really important in 2024 is building relationships. Katie gives us some ideas. I appreciate her taking the time, busy schedule this summer, to talk with me on the John McAllister Report. So please sit back and enjoy a conversation with head volleyball coach at Ashland University, Katie Kuhn. Like I said earlier, my guest today is Coach Katie Kuhn from Ashland University. And I will tell you right away, we do have a connection here. She goes to the same church that I do, Trinity Evangelical in Upper Sandusky. How's that for a promo?
Yes.
Okay. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I got up and got my morning walk in and now hanging with the kids for a little bit and getting ready to go to the office. So.
And tell me that being a college coach in any sport takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
It does take a lot of time. Yes.
I don't have to remind you of that.
It's a lifestyle, that's for sure.
But I've always said when I played sports and coached, was a head football coach, it's quality time versus quantity time.
And I think I've learned that as I've gotten a little bit, a few more years into the sport, where it's not so much more, but it's when I'm in the office and when I'm with my athletes and doing what I need to do, it's about being where your feet are. So being right where my feet are and being present with them. And then when I'm home with the kids, I'm present with my kids. So I think that's something I've learned.
All quality time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Don't sit for half an hour trying to decide if you want to hit the ball with 2 fingers or 3 fingers. You know what I'm saying? I'm being sarcastic. Don't just go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're presently at Ashland University, Division II school, and tell me the conference. I always forget. I have great Midwest Athletic Conference. Right?
Correct. We go by the GMAC. Yes.
GMAC.
Mm-hmm.
GMAC. Mostly Ohio, some Kentucky Division II schools.
Yeah, mostly Ohio, 1 Kentucky school, Kentucky Wesleyan, and then actually 2 Michigan schools. So Hillsdale and Northwood are also in the conference.
Okay, that's really good. Sounds super. Okay, first of all, let's talk about Ashland volleyball right now. Sell me what's going on right now.
What's going on right now? We're super excited. We're going to be super young, moving in that way. And I think we're moving in a great direction. So we're excited about that. I love to compete in the GMAC conference. I think it is one that's surrounded in Ohio, but has some top quality teams as well. But there's always things happening at Ashland. I think the really cool part about Ashland is the funding and so forth that goes into the athletics. We're right now switching over Conard. It's an old field house that's now being renovated. So we'll be able to use, and we're getting ready to build an auxiliary gym. So we'll have another gym that will be there at the university as well. So I think there's things that are happening, and the women's athletics at Ashland are really good. Our women's basketball, our women's soccer, lacrosse, track and field, softball, I can go on. And I think volleyball is right there with the rest.
Well, you tell the athletics director that you want to match football with that facility. Now, you know I'm joking.
I think we're getting there in something. We call it Kate's Gymnasium, which is where we get to compete, and they're definitely continuing to up the standard. And I think that's great. I always say that I don't believe that Ashland University will get beat based on our facilities and based on the funding that is given and the support. The Ashland community is so supportive of all the athletics at Ashland, and volleyball is one that absolutely is gaining some of that support as well.
Okay. And you were there. I saw you were there as a GA back in 2009 and 10?
I tell people all the time, I've only been to 2 different universities in my career, which is kind of unheard of nowadays.
Right.
I was at Ohio Northern as an athlete, and then I went and did my grad work at Ashland for 2 seasons, and then came back to Ohio Northern University and now have returned back to Ashland. And so, yeah, I was able to do 2 seasons and get my graduate work done. And then right when I got done, I actually got married right after my grad school was complete. So
that's really good. You just took away about 3 questions I had for you.
Sorry about that.
I'm joking. You were 9 years, I think, coaching at Ohio Northern, right? How many years as a head coach?
I was 9 years. Actually, I was 9 years as an assistant. So I did 9 years as the assistant coach. And then I was about 4 years as the head coach there.
Okay. That's really good.
Yeah.
And real quickly, wins and losses, and then we'll go on. I know it's all in the past, but I think you deserve some credibility. I mean, you were a 4-year letter winner. So you've played the game. You've gotten some recognition. And what was your record as a head coach at Ashland? Ohio Northern.
John, you're going to ask me a question I don't even know the answer to.
So that's really good, because a lot of guys, I think you were something like 51-19. Okay?
That's wonderful. I love that. I think winning's a byproduct. I think that I put a lot of emphasis in on the little things that add up to be something big. So for me, I love the winning. I think it's awesome, but I think there's also a bigger picture of things as well. And I think as long as you do the prep work, then you're going to be in a position to be able to succeed and get the wins.
Build relationships. I think you said it once early. You said immersing with the girls and expectations are so important. Mm-hmm. More and more, when I was a coach, boy, they frowned on immersing with the players or developing relationships. They frowned, the powers to be did. Mm-hmm. But I think coaches now really need to know their players. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I would 100% agree with you. And I think it's solely based on the coach's personality. I'm a very relational person in general. I get that very honestly from my dad and from my parents. And so I think for me, having relationships with my young ladies, it just builds trust. And this generation needs to trust you. They need to trust what you're doing and trust. They want to know why. Why would I do this? Why would I want to follow you? Why would I want to believe you? Why would I want to have you as my leader and trust what you're doing? And so I think those relationships really help. I will say, I tell the young women all the time that I want to get to know you as a human being. I think that's the most important thing. Yes, you are a volleyball athlete to me, but you're also a young woman that we're trying to grow and develop into something, and continue to build on what your parents have already done. And so I think my classroom is the gym, but also they have other classrooms and other parts of their life that they are working on. And so I don't know, for me, it's just always been relational. And does that make it tough? Sometimes it does, because you care about them and you want them to succeed. And when they don't, or when you have to get on them about an expectation, it can be a challenge sometimes.
I think the words I grew up were tough love, and that goes even to your families.
Yes.
You're raising your kids. And
I do that. I even talk about that with my girls. Like, sometimes you're not going to like what I say, but I promise what I'm doing and why I'm saying it is because I care about you and because I love you and I know that you can be great. And sometimes it's hard in the moment, but a lot of times once we take a step back or take a few deep breaths, or the next day even, it's like, oh, I get it, coach. I know why you did that. And I understand. So,
well, I think the other thing is, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm an old guy. Okay. I think you shouldn't yell at them when you're mad. Or no, let me rephrase. You shouldn't really get into them when you're really upset because you're not thinking straight. And if you can slow down, and wait, and it's all about trust. Go back to trust. I think, I've done this thing. I'm slowing way down now, but for years, over 30 years. And my biggest thing is kids could trust me, and they knew that. But I do home, and I knew that, and they knew that. And I think sometimes, I know you hear all these media, social recruiting guys and stuff. Heck, I knew a lot more than they did about the kids because they trusted me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I think that's true. I have stopped, like, post-game conversations and so forth in the locker room. We don't really say a lot in post-game. We talk about 3 positives. We talk about 3 negatives, things we want to get better. And then we move forward, because in the heat of it, I've learned that when I get fired up, a lot of times things are said that aren't really meant. And if you can be consistent and your kids know what to expect out of you, and they know that you're going to be very stable for them, I just think there's something, you nailed it, John. Like, I think there's something with that trust that they know what that expectation is going to be.
And I think the other thing, and here's what a coach told me my first head football job. I was so lucky. I was 24 years, signed a contract at 24, in some ways lucky, in some ways not. But he told me, he said, after every game, talk to your wife or somebody, first person you see. Because when you, or another person, because you'll get all that post-game frustrations, win or lose. Because sometimes when we win, we make silly comments like, we just out hustle them, we just out physicality or something like that. He said, always he said, better your wife, because she knows you, and then talk to the press, talk to the kids and stuff like that. So there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I think there is a lot to that. The first person I talk to after a match gets the blunt of whatever. I agree with you, the blunt of it. So I have to use that.
Let them suffer from it. Or maybe one assistant coach, but that's not fair because they're all jacked up as well.
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about, oh man, go fast, 12 minutes.
You're fine.
Tell me about what you look for in players. Have we done that? Let's talk about, what you look for in recruits. You have the freshmen are probably on campus, but when you're starting to recruit, what do you look for in players?
Yeah, I think I look for a couple different things, and I don't think I'm unique in it. I feel like coaches across the board probably look for that, but I obviously look for physicality. And what I mean is, like, they're being able to develop you. Like, I want an athlete that I don't think has hit their ceiling yet, that I think we can continue to grow. I think that's something that is important to me. I think also I look at you as a whole human. How are you interacting with your coaches? How are you taking a big loss or a big win? What's your communication with your parents? All of those type of things, like what type of competitor that you are. And then also, like, what you are like that way. Because if you don't have the open-mindedness to be able to grow and to get better, then you're probably not going to get out of the gym what we want or what you want. And so I'm very big on that. The other thing is just volleyball is the ultimate team sport. You can't win or lose by yourself. Someone has to pass it, that has to set it, that has to hit it. And so you can take over a match a little bit in some capacities, but it is the ultimate team sport. And so I want to see, like, are you multifaceted? Like, can you do a number of the skills? And how do you interact with your teammates and so forth that way? So I think there's a lot of things. I think the ability to play volleyball is somewhat assumed. And I think that I look for that, absolutely. But it's also the development then of those young women is how much better can we get you in the 4 years that we have you?
Yeah, I think the athleticism in volleyball is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this, I was watching a game. I was when I was at Lakota High School, and I saw a girl. They don't call it spike anymore. Somebody hit Spike and hit her right in the face. She went down. She's just crying. Not just went down, but crying.
Yeah.
And I looked at two football players who were sitting there. I said, she got harder than you guys ever get hit in a game. And the crazy thing was she was back playing in 10 minutes.
I know.
She's a good player.
Yeah.
And then I have two granddaughters, and the sport I never wanted to see them play is what? Volleyball. No, there's no way you're playing volleyball. It's too hard.
Oh, no. Volleyball is a great sport.
They are amazing athletes. Their reaction times are so amazing. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you on that. Okay. With your success as a volleyball player, come from a small school, Mohawk High School here in Wyandotte County, going to Ohio Northern, but getting a lot of success, lettering for 4 years and all those things. How hard is it to keep your drive and intensity at the college level, because you're so used to being driven? Mm-hmm. How hard is that to kind of bottle some of that when you're working with the players?
I think what I've noticed is I do recruit young women who are similar to me, which is a blessing. And also, like you said, I think you used it earlier, blessing and curse. It's wonderful because the young women that I tend to recruit are people who are relational, who are very competitive, who have that energy. And so when we get into the gym, a lot of times they say that your players reflect what you are like as a coach. And I will say that tends to happen, where and then I feed off of them, and I feed off of those relationships and that energy that happens. And so I'm a huge communicator. So we talk a lot about communication on the court, off the court, honest communication with one another. And so then the young women tend to be of those same values. And so I think that helps when you recruit young women who have that competitiveness, but also have that care and that compassion for one another. Then it just, I don't know, it like feeds me and continues to get me, up every morning to be able to go coach.
Yeah, that's super. And I think the other thing is, it's, maturity. I mean, coaches have to mature.
Yeah.
We're talking about kids maturing. Well, coaches have, like I said, I've been in it a long time. And I think as a coach, hopefully as he gets older and more mature, some of the problems he thought were gigantic when he was younger are now just part of the deal.
I've definitely noticed that too, John, as I've gotten older, which I still feel young, but I've been coaching for 16, going on 17 years at the collegiate level. And so for me, there's some things now that I look back and I almost kind of laugh because I'm like, wow, I made that a very big deal. And it isn't now. And so some of the maturity, I've learned a lot about myself as a person and as a coach and what I need and what I should and shouldn't do. And so I think that's really helped. I've also learned what's important to me. And so those things are things that I stick by, and I make sure that those are the values and those are the important things. And we call those the little big things that happen in our gym. And so I've kind of learned to let some things go, and the things that are important to me and that I value, I definitely have continued to hold on to.
Let me give you an example. When I was a head football coach, oh boy, they had to dress up. They couldn't wear jeans. Jeans were just popular. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. They had to wear, well, we had shirts that kids wore. The boy, no jeans and all this stuff. And then as I got away from it, I look back and say, wait a minute. Nobody saw those kids at a game. They get there before hardly anybody arrives. They get their football uniforms on. When they leave, nobody sees them. Why wear that? Why make that a big rule? And so things like that, a maturity, is really important, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about recruiting. Tell me about three more things. Tell me about the NIL. Does that affect you very much?
It does not affect us very much. Do I think it could in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it will continue to trickle down into our world. I will say it is impacting our men's and women's basketball. And so I think volleyball is kind of that next sport. Obviously, football, I know it's a huge part in the football game, but we're also seeing it in our men's and women's basketball. And then I think volleyball could be next. We're not to the level of millions of dollars, but we are to the level that it could impact if a person comes based on maybe getting some of those deals and having a little bit more money in their pocket, or even like a computer, or even some of those type of supplies as well too.
So I think that there's such a I'm going to cut this out. I'm thinking of a word here. I think that people, the average fans, just assume kids on a 4-year scholarship, man, they can do anything they want to. They have extra money. They have all this stuff because everything's paid for. That is so far from the truth. Even in Ashland University or Ohio State or Michigan, I mean, a lot of those guys before, I mean, they didn't go to movies and stuff. They didn't have any money. City kids didn't have any money and stuff, and rural kids. But I think that's going to help. I worry about the transfer rule. I worry about that.
I do too.
Because somebody can get mad at you, one of your players, and say, I'm transferring. And you can't do anything about it.
Correct. And it happens. It does. It has changed the coaching a little bit, because, you have to walk a little bit more, carefully. But also I say, if you want to be a part of this, be a part of it. If not, then obviously maybe I didn't recruit the type of young woman, that I'm hoping. But at the same time, I understand why the transfer portal came about. I think it came about for the right reasons, but now it's exploded. I mean, we're at a totally different level. And the argument has always been, or that I'm hearing now, is, well, coaches aren't staying nearly as long. Coaches are jumping and they're getting to do that. And so why wouldn't players want to have that same ability? And I get the argument, but at the same time, we're talking about, professionals, and people that their jobs and so forth. But we'll see. I don't know. I understand what people are saying, but I don't personally love the transfer portal. I think it's there. Some young women do it for the right reasons. And then others, I just think it's kind of caused our game to change a little bit. And it's definitely changed the recruiting game. I will tell you that. Last question.
Yeah. Tell me about and Joe Burrow's dad is a good friend of mine. Tell me about pro volleyball. They have a franchise in Columbus.
Yeah, they have a franchise in Columbus, pro volleyball. Actually, my cousin is the head coach for the Supernovas, which is the team that is out of Omaha. So it's been really cool. We were actually, my husband and I and the kids, we road tripped out to Omaha and were able to see the championship match. And the Supernovas won. So Bird Kuhn is our cousin, and she's the head coach and will be again this year. So I love that the professional league is happening here in the States. I mean, even with watching the Olympics, a lot of the women who were playing on the Olympic team play overseas, don't play in the States. And so I love that they're trying to get them here. The tough part is now there'll actually be 2 professional leagues. And so they're going to be competing against one another here in the States. And so we'll see how that kind of shakes out. But I love that we're trying to keep, the top players and so forth in the United States and getting to play. And volleyball is one of the fastest growing sports.
Right.
And even now we're talking on the boys or men's side of things too. Like that is a very fast growing sport. And so I'd love as much exposure as we can for the game of volleyball here in the United States is to me is wonderful.
Okay. Last comment here.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're talking to a young coach with 2 kids and a husband, and you're giving her advice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The one, the daughter is a pistol. She's very undisciplined and all that. You know, I'm joking with you. Yeah.
Oh, I love her.
So we know Katie's daughter and my granddaughter are really good friends.
Very good.
Okay. It's really hard. I think you said it earlier for any coach anymore is quality time. That's what you find really hard, I'm sure, right?
I do.
Dividing the time.
Yeah, dividing the time and having enough of me. I like to say, you know, we divided it there, but one thing I've learned is you have to ask for grace. And I'm not going to be perfect, and there's going to be things that I miss, and there's going to be times when I'm a little bit late here or that I'm not quite checked in. But one of the things that I've really tried to is every year we pick a word for our season. Each person does. And that's like the word that's on their locker. We don't go by our last name. We go by our word. And my word this year is joy. And it's been a word that I've chosen multiple years. And for me, it's just finding joy in the little things of whatever they may be. And so I have to find joy in what I'm doing. And then it's the same thing as finding that joy when I'm at home. And there's a reason I feel like I've been called to be a coach, and am trying to get the most out of that, but I've also been called to be a mother as well. And so you can do it. And I think sometimes it's just asking for that little bit of grace. You're not going to be perfect, and no one expects you to be perfect. And I think when I first started, I really felt like I had to be everywhere, and I had to be 100% on all the time, and I couldn't mess up, and I couldn't do these things. And now when I mess up, I say sorry and we move on, and it doesn't change anything on that front. And my kids love what I do. I get to bring them in the gym with me, and my big girls, I call them, my big kids at Ashland, love my little kids. And so I think that part has been really cool. And so what I've learned is that I am very open and honest about who I am. And I'm very true now to who I am as a mother and as a wife and also as a coach. And I think it's just embracing all of those different roles.
My late wife used to have a thing that always dropped me to my knees was, is it that important? Is it that important? Yep. That's all she would say. And Katie, hopefully you have great success. I know we'll see each other once in a while. And I'm so excited for your second year at Ashland University. I did see you play Tiffin University last year. Nice. And so I'll have to come to a couple of games.
Absolutely.
And you're so honest and sincere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.